Welcome everyone to another ChronoLogic live stream that we have a nice guest here from MakerDAO. The integrations engineer Sean Brennan is joining us, and we have Anthony and Logan and Piotr and a lot of people here from the ChronoLogic team. We are going to give you all the latest development updates and talk about scheduling the DAI stablecoin, which is a stablecoin created by MakerDAO. So let's get into the development updates, and then we'll do introductions and everything. So Logan, can you tell us about the development updates in the next slide when it pops up?
Yep.
We'll just get through all the slides. There we go. Okay, Logan,
So,
you can go ahead now.
Sure. So this week we pushed some changes to the dashboard on the time node, the browser version of the time node. This includes some nice enhancements that people have been asking for, such as being able to see how long the time node has been running, as well as some more details about the transactions that the time node has registered and cached, as well as some tweaks to how the statistics are shown for the executions and claimings, just to make things a little clearer on the UI side. We've also implemented the time mint check. So this was something that we've been saying you could use a time mint instead of the day holdings as a way to log into the dAPP, but it wasn't actually implemented until this latest release. So now for anyone who has a time mint, they'll be able to use the dAPP. So the latest versions are released. You can get the Electron apps on the GitHub releases page, and you can find the latest browser version at app.chronologic.network. Additionally, we have 2 releases for the CLI and the time node core. These were mainly smaller bug fixes and maintenance releases, and for those we don't have any big announcements there.
Great, thank you, Logan. So Anthony, I think you were going to talk about the release plan. Can you give us a little idea of how we're releasing everything in the soft launch?
Yep, definitely. Thanks, Sean. Hey guys, Anthony here. My name is Adeba03. So just a quick run through the release plan. As you guys know, the mainnet is up and running. The ES is up and running on the mainnet as we speak. It's been running for over a week now. We had the announcement or the pre-announcement at Ethies, which happened this last weekend, the 8th of September. Right now, we're on the MakerDAO and ChronoLogic live stream, today being the 11th of September. We also have an upcoming live stream on the 14th, which is Friday, with MyCrypto, which is the kind of the MyCrypto launch, which is also planned for the same day. Then finally, we have the grand launch, which is going to be planned with DevCon 4, which is coming up the end of October into November.
Great plan. Yeah, it's a really good idea to get all the bugs out and kind of test it with a smaller group and then keep on going to a larger and larger audience over time. So
Yep.
we have two events very recently, and Piotr, our tech lead, presented at this, where Vitalik was presenting as well. So Piotr, are you able to turn on your microphone and give us a little idea of how that went?
Hey, absolutely, yeah. Well, I think it went good. There was plenty of interest of what we're doing. So, as you know, and as you seen before on the previous webinars, I was talking about the second layer execution markets, which is basically the basic idea behind the Ethereum Alarm Clock. And essentially, I was explaining and on the other hand pitching the idea to build a more homogeneous network of the execution nodes. So we get plenty of contacts with the projects and protocols that are planning or already using such a principle. So yeah, it's essentially work in progress, but I can say that was really fruitful and definitely a very good time spent in Asia. So
Yeah,
I
it's
think
really
that's
an
it.
honor to be chosen as a presenter at these kind of semi-official Ethereum development events where people like the founders of Ethereum are presenting.
Oh yeah,
Great
yeah,
job.
a really good event. So okay,
Great.
thanks
And
guys. So
Logan, you were at the ETH Berlin hackathon with Daniel, and also you were hacking side by side with the Polymath developers. Can you give us an idea of the type of networking and development that went on there?
Yep. So yeah, Daniel and I from the ChronoLogic team attended ETH Berlin. It was a part of the Berlin Blockchain Week. So this whole last week has been jam-packed with events. There is points where we had a lot of stuff we were interested in, and we had to choose between going to two different meetups. So it's been a really exciting week for us, and I think so far, uh, the major takeaway we have is that there is many members of the community working on their own separate projects, all in one place. And so you could just walk down the hall at the hackathon and hear everybody talking to each other and trading ideas, collaborating, and coming up with new solutions using the like very cutting edge tech. And overall, it was just an amazing place to be and amazing event to witness. So the ChronoLogic team teamed up with Polymath, and our hack actually involved the DAI. So uh, we'll we'll be able to talk more about that a little bit later, perhaps.
Great. Okay, yeah, it's pretty cool that half a year ago at ETHCC in Paris, no one ever heard of ChronoLogic, and now when we go to these Ethereum development conferences, everyone knows who ChronoLogic is. So that's another nice takeaway. So big news for all the people in our community and for the public at large is that you can schedule ERC20 tokens to be executed in the future on the main net right now at app.chronologic.network and on the desktop apps for you can go to ethereum-alarm-clock.com and download desktop app for Linux, Mac, and Windows to run a time node as well and earn ETH bounties by executing transactions for other parties. Okay, well, Anthony, I guess you'll be taking it from here, and we'll be calling on the integrations engineer, Sean Brennan of MakerDAO as well.
Thank you very much, Sean Morgan. Thank you for going through the updates. Thank you, Logan. Thank you, Perch, for giving us the quick updates. So just a quick check. I hope you guys are not sleeping. Can you please give me one in the question box to tell me or let me know either you're still awake and you're still listening to us till now? Thank you. Thank you, each. Thank you, Brendan. Thank you, Martin. Hi, Marcelo. I hope you guys are all doing good. Okay, so as Ace done, so as I mentioned earlier, we're joined by Sean Brennan of MakerDAO today. Sean, could you say hi?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Happy to be here.
Great. We're going to be discussing majorly about the use cases of stablecoins, to be precise, the DAI stablecoin, and going over ideas, including those that exist, as implementations that exist, as well as those that could come about as we advance. Remembering that every day is a new day and we are developing something new and learning something new every new day. So just to give a quick rundown, a quick idea or a quick recap of stable coins. We have been working with, we've been trying to work with MakerDAO MakerDAO for a while now, a few months, trying to see what we could put together to set up something interesting. We have some ideas which we also try now, including the automated CDP auto refill, which is basically making use of the alarm clock to refill your collateralized position based on the changes in the price of the ETH to the dollar. Remembering that the DAI is pegged to the dollar. So before I proceed, I just want to show real quick. For those of you who are unaware, that you can actually schedule the transfer of your DAI straight from the dAPP. Now, if you go to app.chronologic.network, you would be met with the interface to schedule your transactions. Basically, once you go to the information tab, right, and you tick or you slide the token transfer, you would see that you can choose which token to transfer. And there you see both the DAI token, which is our native token, and you see the DAI token, which is the MakerDAO stable coin. So Sean is going to give more on the coin as we go on. So this is just to remind you guys that you can do this, and once you go through the process and you confirm it and you schedule the transaction, you're basically scheduling the transfer of your DAI tokens. It prefills the information you need, including the address of the DAI token, as well as the gas cost you would require to make the transfer. So all you have to put in here is just the address and the amount of DAI you would like to send, as well as the gas price at which you would want to send. Normally for the gas price, the best tool right now for checking the network's gas price is the gas station. For those of you that do not know about it, that is the 8gasstation.info. It gives you an idea of the present network by doing an average over a few blocks, which is right now 4.3. Okay, so that's about the demo. Back to the slides. So Sean Brennan, so I'm gonna just need you to go real quick over what stable coins are, and just a non-technological surface kind of description of stable coins.
Yeah, so stablecoins get the name because the volatility of them, so the price adjustments over time, are meant to be lower than other cryptocurrencies. So they're stable to a certain peg. Most of them are pegged to the US dollar, including DAI. And so there's about 3 different ways right now. Everyone's trying to invent new ways to doing this, but there's 3 major ways of doing it. One is the IOU model, kind of like Tether, is the most famous, where basically you give someone $1 and they give you a token saying that you can, in the future, redeem that for that deposit. It requires a lot of trust in that entity issuing that token. And so Tether hasn't had an audit recently, so there's no idea whether they have the $2.5 billion still in their bank account. So there's an element of trust involved in it. But we did it a very much different way, where we have on-chain deposits that back our DAI stable tokens, and it's been working in live since December of last year, and we think it's really cool. We're not going to get into the mechanics of how it stays stable in this talk, but there's a very, very good article on the different types of stablecoins called The State of Stablecoins by Consensus. You can Google that and read up on them, or find a way to talk to the Maker chat room.
Nice. So quick one, guys. Get your questions ready and put them in the question box. We would get to them later on. This is kind of brainstorming kind of live stream. So also get your brain juices on and just leave your thoughts in the question box. So thank you for that, Sean. You mentioned about Tether's questionability, or let's say the conspiracy around Twitter, because it's more or less centralized. But with DAI, we have something decentralized, something that is basically on the chain, and any person could go ahead to check on the chain to verify the validity of your claims or MakerDAO's claims of having those assets. So we have some of the stable coins listed, including the DAI, the Theta, the DGX, BitShares, and Steam dollars, right? You mentioned also that the whole point of a stable coin is that it's pegged to a certain value, not necessarily the dollar. We see that DGX is pegged to gold. We also see that BitShares is pegged to assets, and these assets include the crypto assets as well. Could you just in a few words just explain why you would basically need to peg, so you've mentioned that it's because of the instability or the fluctuations in the prices, right? So if we say, for instance, gold's value doesn't really change, right? But what changes is the reference of gold to the dollar. So could you just kind of just give a little hint, not going too technical, because we have to remember that we have guys listening to us. Just basically, why would you need to peg something to the dollar? Just maybe a few examples.
Yeah, so the main example I like to give is for when you have some transaction on chain. It could be some financial transaction, such as a loan or just a payment scheduled for the future. When you use a volatile asset like Ethereum as the basis for that loan or that payment, you're essentially betting on the price of Ether. Someone, if it increases a lot or if it decreases a lot, someone in that transaction is going to lose and someone's going to win. And so businesses would much rather prefer to have basically take that out of the equation and just not have to worry about what's called the counterparty risk involved. And so when you're with ChronoLogic, when you're scheduling transactions in the future, if you schedule it with Ether, you could benefit from it or you could suffer from it. And so taking that risk out of the completely out of the transaction is why stablecoins are very, very useful.
Nice. Yeah. So we also have the cases of let's say we have the escrow as is listed. We have the escrows, which is very related to what you've said, where you have your fund stock or you have the possibility of the prices changing over time. We also have the trade examples. So just to give you guys a quick example, when you exchange, so there's a site which has, or not a site, a project which has been picking up steam in recent time, gitcoin.io, which is basically open source. Developing, a developer can come and pick up a project, develop, and then receive the funds attached to that particular task which the developer has picked, and then get paid in the currency which is set as the payment option. So this is one good example in the sense that when you start your project or you start working on the task in question, for instance, similar to what Sean just described, if the payment for that particular task is pegged to the Ether, as we can see earlier, a few hours ago, Ether was at $193 per Ether, right? And you begin the work, and then probably 3 hours to 4 hours later, you're through with your development, and then you realize that you get your payment in Ether, the same one Ether, but now Ether is $185. You're like, okay, now this doesn't work. I would rather have my $193. So if you had simply done if the payment was 193 DAI 3 hours ago, now 3 hours in the future, hoping that nothing, well, if nothing changes to our level of technology security in the next 1 to 2 years, we should still be able to have the DAI being the exact same $193 in a year's time. So that's just to give you guys a kind of another example. And then another use case is basically the contributions, which is the most popular. You have the ICOs here and there. You have some types of IPOs that are saying they are IPOs, but do you still pay with your crypto and stuffs like that? So you're trying to get into so a lot of the ICOs are pegged to the dollar, right? And then let's say an ICO announced 2 months ago, right? While Ether was still $300 to an Ether, right? And they announced that they were going to be doing their ICO, let's say today, or their contribution, let's say today or yesterday or this week. You had one ETH and you bought the ETH down, saying, okay, yes, let me keep this ETH. I want to contribute just one ETH, which is approximately $300 to this ICO to partake in it. And then coming forward a few months, and then you realize your ETH is worth $185. And so you're not able to achieve the $300 worth of contribution you want to do. So this is all still based or pointing back to the same thing, the need for stable coins and the need for a peg to a certain value. So Sean, I'm gonna come to you for this, right? You mentioned that if you schedule a payment with the ChronoLogic system, I don't know how much experience do you have making use of the alarm clock?
I've used the app, the screen that you showed earlier, the
Cool.
application ChronoLogic Network, and I'm just beginning to. I'd like to run my own time node, so I'm trying to learn how to set that up.
Nice. Okay, so from app.chronologic, you could easily schedule your transactions, right? Or be a time node, or you could also have the Electron app, which is basically an app that is local. You have a local app on your system, similar to your browser. So normally, if you were not going to how Sean, if I might ask, without the EAC, if I need to make a payment in the next 2 hours with DAI, how do I go about that?
I don't think that's really possible without the EAC. You might have to. There's a way to send DAI through the command line. If you're familiar with the cron job, you could probably set that up to run on your local computer. But yeah, I don't think anyone does that.
So, but if I do set up the cron job with my computer or with a server, that means the server mustn't go down. That means the server has to be running, else I wouldn't be able to make my payment, right?
Exactly, right.
Okay, cool. So, an easy way to describe it is without the EAC, such scheduling is hectic, time consuming, and prone to mistakes because I'm pretty sure that anyone who has been dealing with crypto for a while will have definitely faced one of our best enemies. I'll call it best, not greatest, which is the fat finger error, where you're about to type the address or you're about to copy and paste the address, and while doing that, you mistakenly hit your space bar or one thing or the other. And before the era of checksum addresses in Ethereum, for instance, I know I lost about $300 back then when Ethereum was about $20 or so. So I could just imagine how much that is right now when you check the price right now. So the it is basically in an address and in a random address which was generated for me by the EVM. So the fat finger is one of the major issues we have, but thanks to the checksum addresses, now it checks to ensure that it's a valid address. This is also similar to, this is based on the BIP, which was focused on the checksum addresses, which was released a while ago as well. But now the whole point of pointing to that is just to explain the ease of access and the possibility with the EAC. With the EAC, all you need to do is to schedule the transaction, and basically, rather than having only your server running, and if anything happens to the server, your transaction is lost. But you have a fleet of people who are the time nodes. Right now, as I'm speaking to you, we have at least 10 time nodes running on the mainnet, and by our estimation, each time node should be able to take care of at least one transaction per block. So this is, which means that right now we can, the EAC can handle 10 transactions per block, which is pretty interesting. So that's something I just wanted to point out real quick. So yes, so now focusing on scheduling the DAI, to be precise, Sean, we've listed out some use cases. We have the delayed payments, we have the periodic / recurrent payments, which is there is an ERC for the recurrent payments right now. I don't know if you know about that, the ERC 948. That was created a few, I think last month or upper month. I don't know. Logan, are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Yeah.
So the ERC 948 is the recurring subscriptions ERC, and Piotr is part of the working group in that, and I believe they have posted like an updated EIP EIP 1337. I'm not completely up to date, but that's about what I know.
Cool. So then also we have the change on state dependent, which is one of the things we're trying to work, or ChronoLogic has been trying to work on with MakerDAO, which is the CDP, collateralized deposition. So what ChronoLogic has been trying to do, or one of our targets, is to set up a service which allows you basically have an alarm clock or have a scheduling instance that watches your CDP. So Sean is going to go a little deeper into how the CDP works in a short while, but just to give a kind of idea of what our plan is. So the contract checks to ensure that your CDP value is good. So your CDP shouldn't drop below a certain value. If it does drop to that value or below that value, the contract automatically funds the CDP to keep it running. So Sean Brennan, do you want to quickly just give us an idea of how the CDP works?
Yeah, so CDP collateral is the term for the ether that's deposited into a smart contract that is only controlled by you, the owner. So the creator of the CDP is the only one who has control over the collateral. And so when you deposit the ether, you can then loan yourself DAI. So that's the only way that DAI can be created. And when you pay back your loan of DAI, you can get your collateral back. So that's the way that DAI is destroyed. And so by changing the supply of DAI over time, purely decentralized and based on each user's own incentive to create this loan, that is how the supply of DAI changes, and that's how the price stays at $1. And so this CDP, it has a threshold. Like if the ether price goes up, you're fine, you don't have to worry about it. But if the ether price goes down, you run the risk of it being liquidated, or in the term it's called bitten. And so keeping track of your CDP state is very important. And so being able to have a state dependent transaction where it would automatically check if the CDP is at risk of being liquidated and could fund it with or pay back some of the loan in order to save it. And so that's a very, very useful application of the EAC.
So just to go a little deeper into this. So basically, if you do not fund the CDP, when the price of Ether is dropping, and you get bitten, so does this mean you lose both your DAI and your Ether, or it means you just lose the Ether which you used to loan the DAI and you're stuck with the DAI? Well, not stuck, but you're left with the DAI.
Correct, it's the latter one. So when you get liquidated, so the minimum value of the DAI loan to the CDP to the Ether is 150%. So you can loan yourself up to 2/3 the value of the Ether locked in it. And if the price of Ether falls, we say, if you reach that threshold of that 2/3 threshold, we say, hey, you can keep your DAI, but the smart contract automatically sells off the collateral to the open market. Basically, you pay a small fee of 13%. And so it's basically it's a negative thing for you when your CDP is liquidated. It's good for the system as a whole. It's how it stays stable, but you want to avoid that situation.
Nice. So at this point, I would want to invite Logan in fully. So what we're trying to do is we're going to attend to the questions and as well try to look at apart from this use case which we have been which we've been working on for a while, also discuss about possible use cases which obviously are not on the slide, might have been conceptualized somewhere else, might have been in paper somewhere else, but just basically discuss about it, involve the community as well, and kind of uh, see what we can create out of just this little brain jostle. So I'm going to start this off by just answering a question which I saw, which was pretty interesting. Well, not answering the question, but I would want Sean Brennan to answer this. So the question was, so DAI is a stable placeholder basically on the loan, which is the Ether loan, like a margin trade.
Yes. So when the people who are creating these CDPs, they're in a sense being able to access margin trading, because when you loan yourself the DAI, you would want to immediately spend it. And so there's a way, like if you deposit your Ether, get the DAI, and then buy more Ether with that, you become leveraged in Ether. And so say if you're 200% leveraged, that means you feel the price changes as double. So if the price goes up 1%, you feel it as 2%. If it goes down 1%, it goes down 2%. And so this is a form of betting, but a lot of financial instruments are built on this sort of thing. And so being able to do it in a decentralized, trustless way has never been invented before. And so it's really, MakerDAO has two products. One is the CDP and one is the DAI. And if you use DAI, you don't have to worry about the mechanics of how CDP works, but it is very interesting and you can learn about it.
Cool. So okay. I know we do have a few traders in the community, so I want to speak towards that direction.
Okay.
This is still this can be very closely related to making use of the Tether to kind of take advantage of the changes in the price between the dollar and the Ether. So I could create a position if I feel that the Ether's price is going up and basically sell off that position later on. Now the question is, since I get more DAI, uh, or well, how would this work basically? I'm thinking of the possibility of taking advantage of this, similar to what is done with Tether to the Bitcoin or Tether to Ethereum. That's from a trading perspective now.
From a trading perspective, well, you want to, so could you clarify, so using DAI as a trader or getting DAI in order to open up a margin trading position?
Can I jump in? I think maybe what he's referring to is using the CDP as a way to margin trade.
Correct.
Yeah, and so anybody can open a CDP, and you would lock in Ether or an Ether, like you wrapped your Ether and you lock it in a smart contract, and then you can loan yourself any amount of DAI up to 2/3 of the value of the Ether. And so what you can do is loan yourself, say you don't want to live on the very edge, but so you loan yourself half. You take that 50% of the Ether value and you buy more Ether with it. So now you have 1.5 times the amount of Ether you had before, and you can repeat that process. You can lock that new Ether in the CDP and loan yourself DAI and continue the process to get, if you take the maximum amount of risk allowed by the system right now, you can get up to 3 times margin trading leverage. And so that service is the way to do margin trading. Are there any specific questions around that I can go into more detail on?
Yeah, so basically adding the EAC on top of this and automating that process could very easily be a good source of fun. Let me call it fun. I wouldn't use any other way to describe it. Of fun of trying out or playing with the market, don't you think?
Oh yeah, so yeah, so usually I think one of the states dependent for these transactions would be like the price of Ether. So having an automated, we actually in the Maker system have to use an ETH price feed, and so that's accessible on chain. And then depending on that state, you could either increase your leverage or decrease your leverage purely automatically through the scheduling.
So okay, so I'm thinking of something. Well, I'm already going too far, but I'm thinking of a way where of a system where you have your EAC going to the CDP, get out your extra Ether, you go into get out, get out your you get out your DAI or your Ether, get out the Ether, you go to an exchange. So for instance, the 0x exchange. Logan and Daniel worked on something with Melonpot recently. I think that was about that was recently, sort of automating the process of setting a stop loss and also trading. So if with the EAC you then set up something like this, gets your leverage, uses it, converts it to more Ether, use the Ether to get more DAI, and repeat the whole cycle over again, going from the point of going from creation of the loaning down to renew leveraging down to more loaning. This could be something very interesting, don't you think?
Yeah, I agree. And so that was with Melonport, but so you guys tested that and it worked out? Cool.
Logan, do you want to take this? You want to talk a little about that?
Yeah, so I can talk a little bit more about that. So for that we had the Melon Fund, and what we wanted was to pay attention to a price feed, and when the price of a certain asset hit a threshold, and for the hack we did this at a hackathon, and so for the hack we chose to make that threshold a declining price, so it would be a stop loss on this Melon Fund. And
Okay.
so for that we were able to schedule a transaction that would in the future, when the price hit a threshold, it would execute the selling off of this asset. So that was with Melon. But the same idea could be used with the CDP as well. So a cool thing that the EAC allows is you could like schedule a whole kind of strategy that will happen automatically for you once you set it up. So you could have a transaction that'll happen in 2 weeks, and it'll check the like the MakerDAO price feed. And if the price is higher than where you drew your DAI out, maybe what it'll do is it will convert more DAI into ETH and put more ETH into the CDP and do that whole process to increase your leverage. But maybe if the price is lower, what you want to do is to transfer some more DAI into your CDPs to kind of reduce your exposure to the declining price.
Gotcha. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Is there a way to check that price every block, or is it specific to, do you have to put in a certain block, or can a time node like every single block check the price, and if the price is lower, then you execute the transaction?
So with the EAC, you have to set the time that logic will run. But we do have a more experimental protocol we're working on called Chronos, and I'm sure the community knows about Chronos. But so what it allows is so the alarm clock is using the condition of the time, so the block number or the timestamp, and then it'll execute on this condition of time. With the Chronos, it generalizes the conditional to any smart contract state. So it can watch the price feed, and every time the price feed updates, and if it updates and it hits this conditional, it can execute at that moment.
Awesome, cool. Because yeah, I think that sort of automated thresholds are really, really powerful and just take a lot of the mental, I guess just like mental concentration, or it needs your attention when you have one of these things. And so helping that is helping a lot of people.
Yep. There's actually a POC for that. We are presently on the POC 3. We have the working POC 1, which is on-chain. But basically, we are considering the possibility of off-chain to better increase efficiency and in terms of cost, and also not give or not reduce the security while doing that. So we presently on the POC 3, which tries to have totally off-chain scheduling, in the sense that you don't need to interact directly with the blockchain to schedule a transaction. There's a whole lot more. There's a whole lot more to it. You should definitely check it out. And for you guys who are listening and haven't checked that out yet, you should definitely check it out. GitHub.com/chronologic/chronos. So it's a very interesting one. The master branch is the POC 1, and that's working right now on chain. It reduces the cost by how many percent was that, Logan?
So it
Compared to
reduces
the
the
alarm clock?
cost. Yeah, so it reduces the cost of scheduling from 450,000 gas to just over 100,000 gas.
So this is even far less than what you would need to basically run a transaction with Ether Delta or Fork Delta as we know it. So yeah, it's a whole lot of improvement. So let's take a few questions. So we have a question from Stan Young. I hope I pronounced that right. So is it possible to send DAI to a CDP that goes into risk status using Chrono? Meaning when my CDP is tagged as risk, it will be automatically paid down the CDP with DAI or fund more PETH. Yes. So right now with the alarm clock, just as Logan was explaining, you would need to have a time-based check. So you schedule a transaction to check at a particular point in time to ensure that your CDP is in good state. You just need a wrapper contract to check that it should carry out the process or not, whether it should execute the transaction or not. But with Chronos, as Logan was explaining, this is direct, and from Chronos itself, you should be able to do that without any hassle. Okay, so
Yeah, and could I add that I'd like to work with you guys on creating like a blog post that we could put out, or a tutorial on how to do that, because I think that's a extremely useful thing that a lot of people would use.
definitely, would definitely love that as well. Okay, so learn Menezes. Sorry for butchering your name. Um, when will we have a webinar with the bosses to update us about ChronoLogic's future vision? Okay, that should, I think Sean answered that a while ago. Sean, would you want to take it, or?
Yeah, I think that we will be getting more of a vision and roadmap in the future for another webinar, especially around DevCon time.
Sweet. So next is from Leon himself. Why does MakerDAO not advertise the partnership with ChronoLogic? Okay, so it's still in progress. We're still working on it. There wouldn't be point doing any such thing until we have something stronger. And as you just heard Sean mention, we're definitely going to be having a blog post about that, as well as the other things that we might be working on, or we are working on. Yeah. So Stan asks, how does the EAC know your CDP ratio? I have to watch my ratios every day, especially in this environment. Price plummeting. Logan, do you want to take that?
Sure. So you use the same price feed contract that so the MakerDAO Oracle price feed contract as your source of the price, and to call it from the EAC, you would need like a wrapper contract to basically check it against whatever price you would want to execute the logic on. So for that, it's a little bit more of a, you have to have that contract that sits in between the two to be, uh to have the check there. But for Chronos, you won't need that contract in between.
Nice. So before we go on with the questions, Sean, do you have any other thing, any other idea you would like to see of if either EAC or Chronos with DAI beyond just this the CDP? Could you think of anything?
Yeah, so I think any sort of payment model based on subscriptions hasn't really been explored yet in Ethereum, just because they've been nearly impossible to do, or impossible. So user subscriptions, or I can think of an idea around payroll, so like an automated payment to an employee on a schedule. And as the price of scheduling goes down, or et cetera, like people can be paid much more often, or it's something around payroll that could be interesting. And then I think it's very, very useful for certain things where you just want more security, but more of a guarantee that'll run. So if there's power or local network failures when you're trying to do something important, that can ruin your day. And so taking the time to set up a EAC transaction, once that's it's really easy, and so you can just take away that worry about some failure.
Nice. So I want to pick up on the payroll thingy. Interestingly enough, earlier this year, I started working on an Ethereum payroll. Yeah, sadly, I have dumped it for a while because I had to, well, there were quite few interesting things out there. So the picture I had for the payroll was beyond just distributing the funds at the end of the month, right? You could have a way of also logging your time. Now, this very easily could be something that shouldn't be done on the blockchain, because we always have to answer that question: does it need to be done on the blockchain? But it also has a kind of so based on the type of work being done, right? With Gitcoin, for instance, they make use of GitHub as the blockchain, sort of, for storing or for proving that the actions were actually carried out. So this only applies to GitHub related or Git related actions, right? But for any other thing that is outside of that, any other thing that is so let's say log in your time for the day. You have an application which is connected to the blockchain and is able to sign a transaction and then send it to the blockchain. And you know that as long as your transaction is on the blockchain, right, the funds that are in the contract or in the payroll can never reduce to the point that you would not receive your payment. So a way to describe that would be that for you to begin working on the task in question, you need to see that the contract is funded, right? And once the contract is funded, as you're logging your time, right, the contract already knows that this time has been logged and will automatically avoid withdrawal below that amount. So adding EAC into this ensures that your payment is received out in due time. You can't be defrauded by whoever you're working with, and everything happens in due fashion. So yeah, so
I
yeah, go ahead.
I also want to hit on this point of like power failures or networks going down. So I think that's like one of the major appeals of the alarm clock, is that the network of time nodes who that will be executing the transactions are it's a decentralized network. So right now I think we have 10 time nodes on the mainnet, and so far it's been only the community that really knows they can do that on the mainnet. So, and I know I'm running one, and I know maybe like a couple other people from the team like is running them, but besides that, like there's probably about half of those. I have no idea like who's running those time nodes, which is like really cool because they can be anywhere in the world, and if like a whole region like loses power or loses internet, like and someone schedules a transaction, as long as there's one time node still on the network, that transaction will get executed. So yeah, I encourage anyone from the community to run time nodes.
Nice. So let's just take on the remaining questions. We have you could possibly set up a time dated option with strike prices and time decay with EAC, locking in a payment in the future, possibly using DAI. Yeah, that's a very good one, Stan. This is yeah. It's a little bit complicated setting up with the EAC, but yes, it's possible. But definitely with the Chronos, this complications become a whole lot easier because the EAC would natively understand conditions. Sorry, the Chronos would natively understand conditions, and definitely you could yeah, with something once you're given something generic as a starting point, it's usually very interesting building on that and then creating something no one thought of. Okay. Uh, okay, so I think that's all the questions we yeah,
Did
go
we
ahead.
do the my crypto announcement?
Oh no, we didn't do that yet. Okay, so let's okay. Uh yeah, just when we want to do that is the time PowerPoint knows it's gonna crash.
Yeah. So
Sorry about that, guys.
yeah, so I guess it's not so much of an announcement, but just anyone who's listening. So if you attend the webinar on Friday, that's when we'll have my crypto on live, and we'll be going through the how to use the MyCrypto, and that's the day that it'll be live on the mainnet.
Friday, 1 p.m. EDT, and you go to blog.chronologic.network. You can register right now for that live stream so that you get reminders.
And so here's on the on the slide, there's like a teaser of how that looks like on the MyCrypto page.
Yeah, okay, so we're back up. Yep, so I do hope you guys didn't sleep off during the live stream. I hope we're able to keep you keep your attention out through. Thank you very much for joining us today. Sean, thank you very much for joining us. It was really good having you around, and definitely we still have a lot to discuss about and a lot to work on. Thank you, Sean Morgan. Thank you, Logan. Thank you, PH, and thank you guys for being with us today. Um, this we've come to the close or the end of today's live stream, and do visit the blog.chronologic.network, visit the dAPP app.chronologic.network, visit GitHub, github.com/chronologic, github.com/Ethereum Alarm Clock, visit us on Telegram, on Twitter, and also visit the YouTube channel to catch up with all the recent events and updates. This video will be uploaded in the next few days, today to tomorrow, on YouTube for those who missed it. Thank you all once again for being with us today. This is the end.
Yeah, thank you, Anthony. It's been awesome.
Thank you, Sean.